How do you feel about having your face automatically detected and stored by live face recognition cameras by the police services? Well, that is what's likely to happen now that the College of Policing has released a guide on the use of live facial recognition technology. LFR for short. This guide seeks to set out how this technology is going to be used, who it is going to watch, and how it is going to store such information. And it is some of the detail as to who it's going to watch and how that is going to be decided that has lots of people very concerned. The following is a list of police-originated images that might be included on a watch list, some of which you might find perfectly acceptable and some of which you may have strong objections to, but I'll leave you to be the judge of that. So this section says images that may be deemed appropriate for inclusion within an LFR watch list include custody images of individuals and or police-originated images of people who are one of the following. A. Wanted by the courts. You might think, fair enough. B. Suspected of having committed an offence, or where there are reasonable grounds to suspect that the individual depicted is about to commit an offence, or where there are reasonable grounds to suspect that an individual depicted to be committing an offence. You might think fair enough, although at this stage they haven't yet committed the offence, they are just suspected of having done so, or reasonable grounds to suspect that they are about to commit an offence, or reasonable grounds to suspect that they are committing an offence. C. People that are subject to bail conditions, a court order, or other restrictions that would be breached if they were at a location at the time of the deployment. D. Missing persons who are deemed to be at an increased risk of harm. E. Presenting a risk of harm to themselves or others. And F, and this is one that might get a lot of people upset, a victim of or a witness to an offence, or a close associate of an individual who would fall in any of those paragraphs above. Now, in order to put this into context so we understand exactly what it is that we're dealing with here, these essentially are going to be cameras that are used in various locations which will automatically detect faces, and this is how it works. Police services around the country will have an existing database of photographs which are mapped by software to turn it into a numerical value so it can be compared with other photographs. Next, various cameras which will be dotted around the country and at events and so on will scan faces within a crowd. This technology will then map those faces and compare those numerical values with those on the database so that they can be flagged as possible matches for those in the police database. Photos of false matches may be kept for several weeks. Now, just so that you're getting a completely balanced view on this, there is more detail in each of these sections, which is why I've linked those documents below. But let's take one as an example, the category of being a victim of or a witness to an offence or a close associate of such an individual. This document does make clear that the threshold to be included on any such watch list is a high one. The necessity for inclusion must be based on a specific intelligence case and supported by a written rationale. Specifically, it would need to say why each victim, witness, or close associate is necessary to be included on the watch list in order to locate that person who is wanted by the courts and or the police. Further, why locating the victim, witness, or close associate is necessary in order to advance the police investigation, because remember, all of this is supposed to be about the police collecting information and intelligence with a view to detecting and preventing crime. Or in another situation, why locating any victim, witness, or close associate is necessary to ensure their safety or the safety of others. But all of this against the backdrop that a use case very similar to this has already been to the Court of Appeal, which ruled very broadly that it was against the European Convention on Human Rights, specifically Article 8. That, of course, is the right to respect for private and family life. That case, not so long ago in 2020, was a civil liberties campaigner appealing against the dismissal of a claim for judicial review for challenging the legality of the use of the respondent police force's use of automatic facial recognition technology. The broad summary of the case is that the Court of Appeal ruled that the use of automated facial recognition technology in a pilot project by South Wales Police Force was not in accordance with the law, for the purposes of ECHR Article 8. The court went on to say that there was no clear guidance on where the technology could be used and who could be put on a watch list. The data protection impact assessment was inadequate and not compliant with the Data Protection Act 2018, and further that the force had not taken reasonable steps to investigate whether the technology had a racial or gender bias as required by the public sector equality duty. Now, it might now be said that some of these issues raised by the Court of Appeal have been addressed in the new guidance published by the College of Policing, but the extent and the degree to which it has done so will remain to be seen. And while at present there is no specific law that either permits or forbids the use of facial recognition technology, this Court of Appeal decision is going to be significant, although the police stance on these new trials is that there is nothing in the Court of Appeal judgment that fundamentally undermines the use of facial recognition technology to protect the public, and in the new trials there is no risk of breaching the equality requirements. So ultimately, with the use of technology, it's going to come down to a balance on what people are prepared to accept. The use of the technology to keep us safe against those who are intending to do us harm and to find missing persons, to protect victims and witnesses and so on, against the individual fundamental rights, freedoms and rights to privacy that each of us in society should hold dear. And while I can see the arguments on both sides, if I were to wager a bet on the outcome of a referendum, I suspect society would vote against the widespread use of facial recognition technology, turning us effectively into a Big Brother state. But as always, I'm interested in your comments and your views, so please leave those down below and discuss them in the comments below. And please remember to like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.